Good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I'm a little bit early. I just want to make sure not going to
Yeah,
happen same as yesterday.
yes. And how is
Okay.
the storm today? The storm has subsided?
Today is it may going to happen in the evening, but at the moment it's fine.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will talk to you later.
Yes, yes. Hello, Anita. Dr. Anita.
Hi, Savita.
Ah, okay, okay. Just
Hi.
checking the sound.
No,
Yeah,
no, I'm there. I'm there. What
okay.
news of
Yeah,
our Santiago?
yeah. Good afternoon to one and all. On behalf of the Visiting Professors Program, of Goa University. We have all gathered here to listen to Khampo Tashi Tsering. Today we have the last lecture of the series. So get tuned in for his lecture, and hopefully next time we'll have it offline because the COVID scenario looks to be very bad everywhere we go. So the Visiting Research Professors Program, which we have in Goa University, is all of us know that universities are epicenters of knowledge, and the objective of the university is not only to create degree holders who will get jobs, but to promote the pursuit of knowledge, dialogues and debates. And universities are platforms which should engage with all the trains of thought. Education is the cornerstone of any civilization. Jawaharlal Nehru called the universities the new temple of modern India. Mahatma Gandhi has the most important advice for all of us, and he says that live as if you're going to die tomorrow, and learn as if you're going to never going to die. Live as if you're going to die tomorrow, and learn as if you're never going to die. He advised us to keep all the doors and windows of our house open so that the winds of knowledge from all over play in our house. And he also advised us not to be dislodged in our roots. VRPP program is based on this principle of allowing all ideas, ideologies, and truth to move through the campus of our university. And the VRPP program invites academicians and intellectuals from all over to engage not only with our students and faculty, but also with the general public. So this program is devised in the true spirit of pursuit of knowledge. So I once again welcome Khampo Tashi Tsering to give us the continuation of the talk on the aspects of Nalanda tradition, the methodologies of inquiry, understanding the mind and its training, and the nature of consciousness. I welcome Dr. Anita Dudane also, who is also coordinating these talks with Goa University, and she's very closely associated with the Dalai Lama. So on to Geishila Khampo Tashi Tsering. Yes, welcome you, sir.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So today is the last lecture on this series. And yes, originally we planned to have a offline in the campus, but because of the coronavirus situation, we couldn't do this. But hopefully my next talks may going to happen at the Goa University campus offline, seeing face to face, which is very different.
Yes, we are waiting for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So yesterday I mainly focus on this particular typology, which is called sevenfold, the typology, which sources are very much from the great Nalanda masters, particularly Dignac, fourth or fifth, late fourth or early fifth century, and Dhammakirti. Those two great, the logicians and epistemologists. Based on those, their knowledge and their teachings, this a great Tibetan teacher in the 11th century put this sevenfold, the typology, mainly to understand how the Buddhist epistemology, or these great masters' epistemology, is structured, and how the knowledge is knowledge is gained or cultivated. As yesterday's end of the talk, there was a question, is there any kind of sequential in this sevenfold, typology? And there is, as I briefly mentioned, in there, so that is something useful, helpful, learning, understanding these, Nalanda masters' knowledge, to keep and to pass down to, the next generations, because, the modern research, modern way of analysis and doing research, and instruments or tools that they used in the science, and for example, I remember in anthropology, they have this participant observation. The anthropologists go to the villages, towns, and spend years with them as one of the the member of the village or the town, then try to understand the culture and all the what you call the nuance of what is happening in that particular society, and then to understand and to gain the knowledge. So but these Nalanda masters, those days, the methodology or the techniques are mainly really very much, applying their own minds, thoughts, and particularly as the first day, which I mentioned, the critical analysis by mainly, first person, not, third or second persons, but very much third or first person's experiences, and so forth. In that, this is, how the knowledge is gained or developed is something quite useful to do, to know that. That was, yesterday's main topic. And along these, last four, including today, the last three talks, and also the previous month's 3 talks, I repeated every single beginning of every single talk, the helpful, useful, or the importance of training our mind to engage in our daily activities with the positive, and constructive thoughts or emotions, or technically called motivation or intention, which I would like to once briefly to repeat here, to remind all of us, here is not the main goal is not just gain the intellectual understanding. Of course, intellectual understanding is crucial, important, but it is also, here the one of the main aim is something to take with us and try to initially to experiment, and if that is useful, to apply in our everyday lives, in our daily lives. The techniques, the means and methods, and the knowledge that passed down from the few thousand years by these great Indian masters. So that is one thing which they all said helpful. And now myself, I don't have that much, what you call the experience or knowledge, but over the years, due to those great teachers like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and some of my teachers, due to their advice, their guidance, I always try to apply that in the morning, as soon as I woke up, and just sit, straight in the bed, and just to set a, not necessarily a very, deep philosophical positive thoughts, but simply to think how fortunate I am. I'm alive, still I'm alive, and today, I'm going to spend my day, at least deliberately, intentionally, not to cause harm to others' lives, others, the well-beings, others' status, others' environments, and so forth. Just to set that. And then to think if there is a possibility, if there's a chance to give whatever support that others need, whoever that others might be, stray dog, or at the other day on the roof, and there is a small, very fragile birds. I think it may have damaged by the crows, but it was lying on the roof where I usually go for do my exercise walk, and found very, very, on the one hand sad, on the other hand hopeless. There's hopeless. There's nothing I can do because I can't talk to the bird. The bird can't express to me what is going on, what's wrong. And but still, I try to put some water to not to directly touch my hand. Put a glove and hold it and put some water. And but I don't know what's going to eat. But put a little bit of rice, cook rice, and so forth. But eventually die. So something that I try every morning. Almost every morning to set. Then some days to say few verses, which helps to to set my morning intention, how I'm going to spend that day, the Thursday, 22nd, 22nd of April, 2021, and thinking this day I will try all my best to spend my activities of the body, speech, and mind to really to have some kind of meaning to others, not just myself but to others. And then during the day, like for example, just before I join, connect my to the line. Because yesterday I had a little bit of problem, so today I joined a little bit earlier, just before joining that, and once again to spend a little bit time, just 1 or 2 seconds. Now I'm going to start this an hour and a half to share some of my understanding, that I have gained from reading these great Indian masters' texts and listening from those great teachers. This sharing with others may have some positive potential, so I will share with them. So that sort of setting, is very, very helpful, useful. Other ways, as I mentioned several times now, 63, soon going to be 64. My whole sort of existence on this planet is very much just consume, and not very much to support to others. In Indian masters, not just Buddhist masters that I've learned, but also some of those Nagajunas, Chandakittis, from their contemporary, Indian spiritual masters. And there is one term, one term is used to refers to I or the self in English, or Atma, in Sanskrit. I don't know in Sanskrit, but in Tibetan it is called Sawapo. Sawapo, literally it means eater. What does that mean? Consumer, consumes all the, whatever. So if our lives have this amazing, as Solomon says very often, this amazing brain, or rich, great potential, the thoughts, emotions, mental states, if we just use just to get to consume the things, then not very much difference from those other species with that we share our lives on this planet. Only different is most of humans walk with the what you call the 2 feet. Most of the animals with the 4 feet, or some have more than 4. So therefore, it is really something these great masters have mentioned again and again, to be aware of how fortunate that we are, having this human existence. And nowadays, yes, a very tough time that we are facing with this coronavirus, all over the world, and particularly these days, what's happening in our country, India. It is not that easy, to see our country fellow members having lots of difficulties, and many people have lost their loved ones, their family members, close family members, and so on and so forth. And so sometimes quite useful to be aware of that kind of situation, that where we are, and being able to share, sympathy or empathy to the people whom their loved ones are or lost, and so on. So this using our rich human mental state, mind, is very, very useful. Then other thing which I repeated again and again is giving 7-8 minutes to ourselves, to our minds, to in a daily basis, to cultivate a sense of stillness, mental quality of stillness, and the clarity, which today's main topic that I'm going to lead today. Okay, so that is now. Yesterday, within the sevenfold typology, there's one. I think the last one, which is called perception, direct perception, and within that direct perception, I briefly touched on to say yogi direct perception. Direct perception has many, such as our 5 sense consciousnesses are also direct perception, but their function is very limited, very limited, particularly when we are getting old, getting older. We need extensions. For example, my reading glasses is the extension for my direct perception. I sense direct perception, eye consciousness, and soon, maybe a few years time, I may need ear extension. So these direct sense consciousnesses are extremely useful, but their function is very much limited. And then when the physical the organs, or those whatever these days, neurons, which they are rely on, when they start to get less and less or get exhausted, or then our sense consciousnesses, their function deteriorates, and so forth. But the mental consciousness, direct mental perception, they are, as I mentioned, some are very part of our the mental consciousness, sixth mental consciousness. Some should be cultivated through the training, cultivated, and then become part of our direct perception, which these great masters have mentioned, extremely helpful, and there won't be deterioration. Even the physical body deteriorates. The nervous system deteriorates. Daily yogi, direct perception will not deteriorate, and this is what these great masters have mentioned, with one voice. There's no what you call the disagreement on that, and I think it is the same non-Buddhist great ancient Indian spiritual, the philosophical tradition too. It might be the same, although they may have some small differences here and there. So how that is developed, how that kind of direct, yogi direct perception is developed or cultivated, and to do that, two important things that we need to know. And the first one is, our, as I mentioned many times, our general mental state that we have right here and now, to have the quality of stillness and the clarity. These two mental qualities, stillness and the clarities, are enhanced in their highest capacity, and then become those two qualities part of our mental state, our general mental state, technically called the spontaneous, or we can say effortlessly present. These two mental qualities, we don't need to put any extra effort to have stillness and the clarity. Then that level effort, these two mental qualities are present in our mental state, effortlessly, spontaneously, and that kind of mental state is the base or the foundation to cultivate, to develop, the what you call the yogi direct perception. Natural Muslim in Tibetan, yogi direct perception. So to do that, and that is what that kind of not using too much technical terms, that kind of mental state is called shamatha, or in English, calm abiding. There are several different translations. In English, commonly used calm abiding. There are several translations. Anyway, we'll stick with this term, calm abiding. In Sanskrit, shamatha. So now, these great Indian masters have, realized to enhance these two mental qualities, stillness and the clarity. There are we need what called means and methods. Again, means and methods are very much internal, not very much external. Though they mention, external, some kind of prerequisite condition. The people who seriously, want to cultivate shamatha, and then, the initially external conditions are important, such as having quiet, quiet environment. Externally, there are less distractions, and also lifestyle have a less the activities, in the sense the going to external things, external activities, and so on and so forth. But these are the external conditions only need in the initial stage. In Tibetan, which is a text attributed to the Maitreya, Indian text attributed to the Maitreya, called Ornament of the Sutra, Dodigen. The Alamkara Sutra, Dodigen. Sasangwa, Toksangwa, I'm saying in Tibetan. So sasangwa, that means that you are going to do your meditation to cultivate shamatha. The area where you are going to meditate should be in a favorable condition. Favorable in the sense that there is no risk for your in a daily basis for your life, like the wild animal or other things, or less there's no lots of distractions, sounds, noise, and so on and so forth. That, and also relatively easily obtain your basic necessities, food, shelter, medicines, like that. Then second one is called Toksangwa. Toksangwa, that means have a good companion, good friends, good companions. If we have companions or the friend around us, which may distract our main task to do. So like that, sasangwa, toksangwa, nature. Anyway, these are the external conditions, useful, helpful, but not what you call the in my English. Now, that I want to go to internal, the conditions or the tools that is useful to do, useful to have to cultivate shamatha. The first one is in a group of four mental states. Four mental states are like this. In Tibetan, first, tepa. Tepa is quite often translated as a faith. Faith is a little bit misleading. It has already existing, the meaning, particularly, the other religious, the meaning of faith. But I will explain that. Faith, tepa. Dumba. Dumba is aspiration. Tepa, dumba. Zundu, then effort, or joyous effort. Then pliancy. So these are the four mental states. The latter ones are, rely on or dependent on the earlier ones. So in order to have pliancy, that kind of very spontaneous, very effortlessly, having that kind of mental state, that kind of mental quality, it depends on putting efforts. In order to put effort, we should have aspirations to what we are going to put effort to have. We have to have aspirations. In order to have aspiration to something, then we should have faith. Faith in the sense, in these great masters, like what is his name? Sorry for the noise. There's a school just below my window. And, you know, there is this, what you call the Basubandhu. Basubandhu, faith is explained in a three kinds or three times, you know, three times. Here, mainly out of the three, it is referring so the teba is faith. Faith in the sense, you know, you have the understanding. You have the understanding. With the understanding, you have this tremendous sense of joy, or sense of joy to see the qualities of, you know, for example, the followers of the teachings of the Buddha, when they understand the qualities of the teachings of the Buddha, then they have a tremendous sense of faith, in the sense, tremendous sense of joy with the teachings that given by the Buddha or subsequent teachers. So that is here the Tepan in this Basubandhu. He defined faith. Tepan in Gawao. Tepan means faith, and faith means deeply sense of sort of joy to see, joy to, you know, to encounter, joy to have it. So that is here the faith is, you know, defined by Basubandhu or his brother Asanga, one of those two masters. So that is something useful. If we have it, you know, joy or some deep sense of appreciation to seeing those qualities, and then we'll have aspiration to have those qualities to within ourselves. That's the second. When you have a strong aspiration to have those qualities, then we will put the effort to have that. If we put effort, you know, continuously and consistently, then eventually, you know, what we have tried to cultivate will become part of our mental state. That is pliancy. So these four, which is very, very helpful. So now, if you look at to the shamatha in the sense, very simply put it, a mental quality which has, high, advanced, stillness, quality of stillness and clarity. When we understand that kind of mental quality, stillness, mental state which has qualities of stillness and the clarity, when we see that, then you have a sense of joy, people who have that. And when we read the teachings, when we have conversation on the subject, then when we say, how amazing to have that, then that is faith. That will lead to the second, which is aspiration to have shamatha come abiding within ourselves. When we have aspiration, then there is a great chance we'll put effort to have it. If we put an effort to have shamatha within ourselves, then one day the shamatha will become part of our mental state. That is the pliancy. So these four, which mentioned by many of these great Indian Nalanda masters, and which is very, very, this four, what you call in this package, with these four mental, technically called mental factors, these four mental states, this we can apply to any other external that we would like to have, or internal mental qualities that we would like to have, like a love, compassion, altruism. If we have a tremendous sense of faith or joy to see love, compassion, then we may have a great aspiration to have it, desire, then put effort, and so on. And that's the first thing I would like to say. And this is psychologically how it works. how it works. And I may have mentioned this before. Here, these masters, these great Indian Nalanda masters, and of course there are other masters too. These masters are great psychologists. They really understand human minds very, very clearly and very detailed and very in their depth, no doubt. The modern those big companies, these big companies, they want to sell their product. One of their main tools to want to sell their product is to explain or to put in a whatever in these days in the social media or all those ways. In the past, the 19 until recently, I remember in India, traveling from here to Bangalore, along the those highway, huge what called billboard, the advertisement. Now most of them are empty. So when they put in the advertisement, what they put, they sort of the benefit or qualities of the product that they are selling it. The thing is, they understand the human psychology. They understand if they are able to persuade, if they are able to convince the public the benefits of that product they are selling, then they think there's a great chance people will buy their product. Similar to that is done in more than 2,000-3,000 years by these great Indian masters. For example, this great Indian master, which we have seen several quotations, in Shantideva. In his writing, this guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, or Bodhicharya Avatara, out of the 10 chapter, the first chapter is to explain the benefits of having the altruistic awakened mind, altruism. Whole chapter, I think 40-something verses, are fully dedicated to explain benefits of having altruism. And similar to that, many other texts, many chapters. Quite often, the first chapter explains the benefit of the main topic which they are talking about. And that is something which we need to do. We need to understand, in this case, helpful, usefulness of having a calm, clear mind in general, our day-to-day life. That's why this mindfulness meditation is quite popular, in a very busy society like in the West, given lots of, because of the stressful life. So here, which we need to, that's something. Now, the actual tool, so-called what I've explained this for, are some kind of, how to start, or what you can say. Anyway, so the main tool are the what you call that, simply put it in two, the mindfulness and alertness. Mindfulness and alertness. These two are the main tools to cultivate a calm, clear, and focused mind. In other words, calm abiding. Mindfulness and alertness. Now, these two mental states, mindfulness, as other day we had a brief discussion, sati, in Sanskrit and also in Pali, quite similar term, mindfulness. It has it has several different applications. Although the term mindfulness is used, there are several different ways to explain the mindfulness, and several different ways to apply the mindfulness. Now, in this context, in the context of cultivation of calm abiding, this mental state, calm abiding, the main function of mindfulness is, to stay with the object of the meditation. Your mind stay with the object of the meditation, whatever that object might be. It might be your breathing, it might be your mental states, it might be a particular qualities of the mental state, it might be particular fact of the fact of the things such as impermanence, such as dukkha. That depends on the individuals. But the function of mindfulness here in this context is, simply to your mind stay with the object of the meditation that you have chosen, that you have selected. And that is as simple as that in here, the function of mindfulness. Then alertness, sometimes used alertness. There are several different English terms are used. In Tibetan, sheshin, or sometimes translated conscientiousness, or sheshin in Tibetan. Tempa the sheshin. So tempa is mindfulness. Sheshin is, I usually use the term alertness. The function of that mental state, alertness is simply, to observe, or to watch whether the mindfulness, whether the what you call your mindfulness is present or not, whether your mindfulness with the object of the meditation, on the object of the meditation or not. That is the function of this second tool, that is alertness, mental alertness. This mental alertness, the function of this, the second tool is, until certain stage, when our, the cultivation of shamatha reaches at certain stage, this alertness, is not necessary. But until certain stage, this alertness is very, very important tool. It really is like a monitoring. I remember this very clearly when I was studying my broken English in UK. A very, very nice what you call the school, language school, called Bell Language School, and I was studying my English, and that school, language school, is a very, very good, well-known language school, Bell Language School, and they also give teacher training. I can't remember what's the particular degree. Anyway, I can't remember. So that particular, so they have lots of teacher training program too, and when those trainers, the people who are training, to become fully qualified language teacher, and quite often they come to our class to teach, and then the trainers, they sit behind and observe. I'm sure many of you know these universities professors, and it is very interesting when the observers are there. The people who are training as to become a teacher, they become very nervous. Even when they were not there, that they're fine. But as soon as they come, they become very nervous. So that kind of like a, monitoring, like the qualities of the mindfulness, whether the mindfulness is present or not. If it's present, its duration, it's what you call the intensity, and so on and so forth. That is done by this alertness. So these are the two main tools to cultivate shamatha, to cultivate shamatha. Then there are two main obstacles. Two main obstacles. The two main obstacles, I mean, there are several, some masters have more longer lists, but here to get a little bit, to put in a simple way, to have a little bit shorter list. So two main obstacles. Two main obstacles are, in English, translate. There are several translations here. Excitation, that our mind, easily to be distracted. Easily to be distracted. That is excitation, and laxity. Again, in the both, although I've mentioned just two, within these two, there are different degrees. In the excitation, there are different degrees, and also in the laxity, there are different degrees of laxity. Laxity in the gross form of laxity, that your mind, my mind, doesn't have any sort of clarity in a form of very, completely. I usually have this very vivid, image in my mind when I share this laxity. That image is this, can't remember when, quite some time ago, a group of us, while I was in UK, in London, group of us went to a park, beautiful park, and we took some, that's in the afternoon, quite hot, and we took some ice creams, and in the summer, in a nice pack, summer, but we don't have that container which keep cool, because we didn't plan that. But when we got to the park, and first we spent some other things to do and talk, and when we opened that package to have ice cream, the entire ice cream become very, melted. So it's, even though there's some little bit bigger one, like a bar style, they all just become very sloppy. And so I have this image in my head. When you say gross laxity, that means the mind doesn't have any sense of clarity, completely, lost the, that kind of clarity, or in a very gross form, sleepy, but that's slightly different way. So laxity, but some of the laxity are extremely subtle, and subtle, due to that subtleness, even the very quiet, experienced meditator may not see, may not recognize laxity is present, though their mind is in a form of, in a level of meditation, but subtle laxity still present. And some of it is mentioned, some of those higher advanced meditators, even they may confuse whether their mind is in a full, complete 100% in a form of mindfulness, or little bit tiny laxity still present. That demarcation it mentioned quite hard. So there are two kinds of obstacles: excitation and laxity. Two kinds of tools: mindfulness and alertness, mental alertness. So that is something to cultivate shamatha. So now, out of those, the qualities, the two qualities that we are going to cultivate, that is stillness and then the clarity. Stillness and the clarity. Eventually, they will become not in a separate mental qualities. While the stillness is present, clarity is also fully present. But in the initial training, initial enhancement or the cultivation, it is mentioned initially stillness. Then when the stillness is there, in a relatively, say for example, 5 minutes or 3 minutes, your mind is able to stay with the object of the meditation. That can be your breathing. Simple, your breathing, your mind, the mindfulness. Your mind is fully aware of your breathing. That means here the mindfulness. And able to stay that like at 4 minutes. Then need to look at how to enhance the duration. Not long duration, no, just for a few minutes. It is there is a one nicely what you call the Kamalashila and the other great Indian masters explained 9 stages of that how the combining is cultivated, developed. 9 stages. I will not go one by one. These are not that helpful, not necessarily helpful at this stage. But there are 9. But the initial stages are quite useful. In Tibetan, it's called jokpa. The first stage out of 9. The first stage is jokpa. It means placing your mind on the object of the meditation. That can be as simple as that. Just stay with the object. You're at the initial stage. Your focus is not duration for a minute, for 10, 20 minutes. No, you're just simply placing your mind on the object of the meditation. When there is a japa, gundu japa, and then second stage, when there is a little bit, your mind is able to stay with the object of the meditation, not completely out there, that have a little bit that kind of setting, your mind setting. Then try to look at to extend the duration just for a few seconds, not long period. Japa. Second one is gundu japa. Gundu japa, that means continuously placing your mind continuously, setting your mind continuously on the object of the meditation. Like that. Then also, there's another stage, lende japa. Then also, when we have said 3-4 minutes, think, my mind is able to stay with the object of the meditation. Stay to the present moment, right here and now, say that 4-5 minutes. But within that 4-5 minutes, there might be in a hole, there might be a little bit gap, because of the nature of the mind. Mind is, as we had discussion by, according to this, it is not a thing. It is not a thing or one. It is an event of the what you call the clarity and knowing and the clarity, consecutive event, like that. So because of that nature, there might be gap between the first and second and third and fourth. So try to fill that gap in the sense not to have the gap, have some kind of continuation. So those are the things which 9 stages are explained. And along those, the tool, the main tool is the mindfulness. As I mentioned yesterday, the Vasubandhu and his half brother Asanga, they clearly defined mindfulness. Mindfulness means non-forgetful. Non-forgetful in this sense, not losing the object of the meditation. That your mind is placing on whatever, on the breathing, on the nature of impermanence, nature of dukkha, nature of the constant changing whatever, or the nature of the mind. So your mind stays with that object of the meditation. So in that case, the many experienced great meditators and great scholars have said that people who like to take an object as your meditation object, like for example breathing. If you're going to use your breathing, like these days they do in the Theravadan tradition and also in the Mahayana tradition too. First, before you use your breathing as an object of your meditation, object in the sense your breathing is the focus of your mind. Your mind is focused on your breathing. First, really learn your breathing. Make it familiar. Familiarize your breathing. Keep your breathing as it is. Not manipulate, not change. Just keep it as it is, and your mind familiarize with that. With your breathing, with the breathing. Then that will help to move to the stage, these 9 stages of the meditation. Like for example, in the Tibetan tradition, because there are Vajrayana elements, in the meditation there are lots of visualizations are involved. So to do the meditation on image of Buddha, first you have to have that image, then you can meditate on it. Similar to that, if you want to use the nature of impermanence and the object of your meditation, the meditation to cultivate shamatha, first you need to, we have to have, the understanding of nature of impermanence, nature of dukkha. Otherwise, we will not have, unable to use the impermanence as an object of the meditation. Similar to that, nature of the mind. So that is something quite often I realized and I noticed people don't talk that much, that to make sure the object of the meditation familiarize with the object of the meditation. And I usually suggest to my friends, you can experiment few things, like the breathing, like the certain images, like some kind of abstract nature of impermanence. Familiarize some of them, and experiment which one is more. Although they all have not that straightforward, all have we will struggle to have immediate sort of that kind of the familiarity. But due to our upbringing, due to our sort of background, some people may find breathing is useful. Some people may find image is useful, constructed image. Some people may find some abstract phenomena like nature of impermanence, nature of dukkha, or some people may find just certain experience, like the strong experience of love or compassion. So that is the thing, object of the meditation. There are traditions saying You don't need a particular object of meditation. I think that is true at certain extents. At a certain extent, to experience certain degrees of stillness, calmness, and relaxation may not need a particular object of the meditation. Simply your mind stay to the present moment, because these days many of the mindfulness meditation is led in that passion, not necessarily select or choose a particular object of meditation, but simply to stay to the present moment, right here and now, not thinking past, not planning future, but stay to the present of the moment. Whatever is there at the present, just observe that, not interpret, not to reject, not to provoke, not to don't do all those things, but simply observe. When it's past, let it pass. There are these kind of meditation called mindfulness meditation. I'm sure that is helpful, useful, but in my understanding, that kind of meditation may not lead the shamatha that we are talking about. Shamatha that eventually use as a base to cultivate, yogi direct perception. That is what we are talking about, because that is something useful to understand. So, object of the meditation, and also, to take something long term. To take something long term, what you call the goal. Although when Buddha taught, mindfulness, this particular sutra, which is very famous in extensively explained and practiced in the Theravadan tradition, Satipatthana Sutra, for foundation of mindfulness. The mindfulness on the body, mindfulness on the feeling, mindfulness of the mind, mindfulness of the phenomena. There are these, and there's therefore mindfulness of the body is there. So in the mindfulness of the body, the Buddha taught, and subsequent those ancient Indian these Nalanda masters and Buddhist masters, the mindfulness of the body is not simply, aware of this body. It is more deeper than that. It is more deeper than that. And same as the feeling. It's more deeper than just the feeling is here, this is sad, this is, joy, not in that. A little bit further and deeper than that. So the yogi direct perception, that which we are talking about, is cultivated based on shamatha. And the shamatha in this case, as I mentioned earlier, the stillness, mental, higher, more advanced levels of stillness and the clarities are spontaneously present. There's no disturbance. There's no external or internal things can disturb the stillness and the clarity. And the stillness and the clarity is present all the time. Internal whatever or external whatever cannot disturb that stillness and the clarity. And that's quite often, here it's called, it's a quite simple explanation of shamatha. So to do that, now I'm going to have a little bit what you call the summary in here. To do that, the first which I mentioned, those 4 mental qualities or 4 mental states: faith, aspiration, effort, joyous effort, and pliancy. Those are the something useful. And that is related to the shamatha. Then in terms of the tool, I mentioned there are several tools in a mental state are explained, but the most important tools are the mindfulness and alertness. Mindfulness and alertness. So these two are the main tools. And among these two, mindfulness will go all the beginning to all the way. When the full shamatha is present, stillness and the clarity are present, mindfulness is in there. But the alertness, the function of alertness is only in the middle of the stage, out of the 9 stages, from the 3rd to the 5th stage, or the 6th stage. After that, should not apply. If you apply, that will cause the problem. So I will not go all those details. So that is the thing. Then in terms of the obstacle that we need to overcome is, there are many, but we can look at the 2. That is excitation and the laxity. Excitation of the laxity. So excitation, that is, in a different degrees, overall, your mind is distracted. Distracted in the sense, not with the object of the meditation. It's moved away from that by the external events or internal activities. And laxity in the sense, your clarity is not there in its full capacity. So again, in here, there are different degrees of laxity. Okay, so these are the some of those things which yeah. Okay. Now then, when our mind is in a full strength of the the stillness and the clarity, that is shamatha. Shamatha. Then, but that mental state, the quality of that mental state, although amazing, helpful, useful, but it is simple, what you call the stillness and the clarity. Then the second, what you call the mental activity, which is needed to cultivate yogi direct perception, is vipassana. So the vipassana initially in the sense of analysis and analyzing on the things and events, including our breathing, including our body, including our feeling, and so on and so forth. All those analyzing their nature, their function, their composition, in terms of the body, in terms of the feeling, and so on and so forth, to understand their nature, and also mind and the phenomena. If we look at the 4 foundations of the mindfulness, there's also this vipassana that we can apply. When we apply vipassana, in this case, there is a strong element of analysis. From the analysis, then have a what you call the understanding, realization, understanding of nature of the body, understanding of the nature of the building blocks of the body, understanding of nature of breathing, that inhaling, exhaling, every single moment, that understanding, or the understanding in a more abstract nature, understanding of the nature of impermanence. The things and events are impermanent. That understanding through the analysis, or the nature of dukkha. or understanding, love, compassion, altruism, or the shunyata, emptiness, selflessness, the anattama. So these are the then initial analysis. So analysis is done on the basis of mental state, which is very still, have the quality of stillness and the quality of clarity. Quality, based on still quality of the stillness and the clarity, when the analysis are done, then the analysis will be very, very focused, very powerful, very powerful. And these great Nalanda masters, although there are slightly different theories here and there, but most of these great Indian masters, they have clearly mentioned between these two, shamatha and vipassana, people should initially to cultivate shamatha. Based on shamatha, then cultivate vipassana. Eventually what they call, the shilak sumtel in Tibetan. That means eventually the shamatha and vipassana, union of shamatha and vipassana. And that is extremely, extremely powerful tools. Now, when that tool, the union of shamatha and vipassana, is used to understand nature of impermanence, nature of dukkha, nature of emptiness, nature of selflessness, or used to experience love, compassion, altruism, that tool, that union, then will lead to the yogi direct perception. Yogi direct will have a direct perception to understand nature of impermanence, nature of the things and events, and that is here which these Nalanda masters the values, that union, their values very much, that kind of mental union, shamatha and vipassana. Just shamatha alone is not necessarily, for the long term, not necessarily, will not necessarily take us that long way. But also vipassana alone will not take. But even the vipassana, the object that we analyze, object that we investigate, also it depends on how far that will take. It depends on the object of that we, the analyze, that we investigate. So if our investigation, object of the investigation, object of the analysis is such as nature of impermanence, such as nature of dukkha, such as nature of selflessness, anattama, then that analysis will take us quite a long way to eliminate or to abandon many of our distorted mental states, and particularly when this union is present, union of shamatha and vipassana. Okay, so that is the tool that we started, the first talk, what you call the methodology of Nalanda masters, which they apply, is very much, the critical analysis, and the critical among the many levels of critical analysis, most powerful critical analysis is this union of shamatha and vipassana. And when that kind of critical analysis is present, and then used as a tool to analyze on the things, will experience extremely helpful and useful realization or the understandings. Thank you. So that is my conclusion. Okay.
Thank you, Geshe-la. There's
Okay.
a question.
Yeah.
It's about multitasking.
Yes.
So they're saying that would multitasking affect shamatha? For example,
Okay.
listening to the news and cooking at the same time, for example.
So this is interesting phenomenon, which I'll tell you a little bit story with my own experience. You know, in the debating yard here, those young boys who are in their first or second years, you know, there is a line from I think Dhammakirti's Pramana. I think yeah, there were two lines. "Chigi nishe mayin de umbesemne nyechiro." So what does that mean? You know, the two sense consciousnesses, or two consciousnesses, two different consciousnesses cannot operate fully at the same time. So according to these great masters, two different, what you call the two different, the mental states cannot operate at the same time. So my story is this: when I see, when I was in the UK or in other parts of Europe, when I travel in I see people, in their mouth they have a chewing gum to chew, and they have the what you call the earphone to listen to their pop singers song, and then same time they are reading a book, and so on and so forth. And sometimes I think how much they are able to do all these three things at the same time. So the multitasking, it is possible, but here the multitasking can be understood. For example, until I became abbot of this monastery, my life was quite simple. I avoid whole my life to run an organization. But now, since 2018, to become abbot of this monastery, I have to do all sorts of things to have many different departments in here. There's a school, there's a debating, there's a library, there's a the main office, and so on and so forth. Constantly, need to pay attention. So, in that sense, if that is multitasking, then I would say yes, it is possible. One person can, take several different tasks, But at the same, if your question is at one given time, is it possible to do, fully and completely two things together or three things together? I have a little bit doubt. But although I don't know, but as we all know, our mind is the function of our consciousness is very fast. We may switch one event to another event, listening to reading to tasting, tasting to smelling can be switched on, one to to move one to another quite quickly. In that way, we can talk at multitasking. Then I think that is possible. Okay.
Geshe-la, does this also, the follow-up question would be that when we say union of shamatha and vipassana, that
Yes.
means that also then can't be simultaneous. We'll have to have some amount of shamatha, then you have vipassana, you think, and then again back to shamatha? Would you just have to go between one and the other?
Yes, I think in the initial stage that is true. Initial stage that is true, but eventually these two become one mental event. While your shamatha, stillness and clarity is present, same time your mind is able to do the analysis, your mind is able to able to realize the phenomena, subtle phenomena, through the analysis. So it is a matter of training. It is a matter of training. These great masters have said, eventually this union, in the sense, while the stillness and the clarity is there, your mind is same time your mind is able to do the analysis, some detail, some depth, some thorough analysis. So that means moving one stage to another stage. Still, your stillness is not losing, stillness is not deteriorating, though mental event is moving one to the another event. So, in a more advanced level in the union, these two can be in one mental entity, not as a separate mental entity. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Geshe-la. I'm going to pass it on to, I think, Dr. Savita to say
Yes.
Okay.
thank you.
So, thank you very much, Geshila, for
Thank
your
you.
journey on shamatha today and the clarity of mind and the four mental qualities, the states, mindfulness, alertness, because, and of course, vipassana, analysis and understanding are distorted mental state. So, I hope we have the lecture series in person next year. So
Yeah.
after COVID subsides, I hope it subsides very soon, and all of us are in a very good mental state to listen to your lectures next time. Yes,
Yes.
and thank you very much for this lecture series.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Anita, for coordinating the question and answer session. And I also would like to thank Mr. Rajiv Mehrotra, the Foundation for Universal Responsibility of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and of course our Vice Chancellor for all the encouragement for this lecture series. And of course to all of you who are patiently listening uh, to Geshila. In spite of all this tension of COVID, of course, it gave us a lot of peace of mind to listen to Yogeshila. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah. I
Yes.
really want to say, express my sincere gratitude and thank you to the Goa University and the Vice Chancellor, and also, the Dalai Lama's Trust, the Mr. Can't remember, and
Thank you,
also, yeah, and also Professor Kakra, and also Dr. Ananda, to
Anita.
Anita, to
Yeah.
to organizing and to
Yes.
uh, really to giving me this opportunity to share some of the understanding that I have, and I want to say thank you, and also I want to thank all the people who have participated this series of lecture, and my I don't know how much you have understood through my broken English, but with my sincere motivation, I've tried to share the knowledge that I have, and I hope when the next our turn comes, then we will have another series of lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshila. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thanks
Thank you,
to
Savita.
DDLI, the
Bye.
Directorate of Digital Learning, also for coordinating
Yes.
all this. Yes,
Yeah.
and making it easy for us to listen to you. Yes. So
Okay.
thank you to my
Thank,
BRP staff also.
yeah, that's
Yes.
true.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.